So what are we talking about? What are we talking about here, guys? Talking about
Welcome to the first annual Nazi November.
It is time.
It is November, and we're talking about the biggest, most agreed upon scums of the earth this month. And
arguably the best dressed.
Well, yeah. What we don't want to highlight the good, no matter what.
I'm just saying. I'm just gonna put it out there.
Yeah,
Nazis are bad, but
Doc Martens.
Doc Martens, Hugo
bad.
Boss, they knew how to dress.
Volkswagens look good.
Hugo Boss. Volkswagen.
They're good looking
Good
cars.
stuff. Mercedes.
They take all the good looking stuff, you know. They take all the good looking stuff.
But we're not here to talk about the good looking stuff.
Nah, we're here to talk about the bad stuff.
Strange and mysterious.
Real nasty stuff.
And more specifically, Colonia Dignidad, which you might be wondering, what's that, guys?
What is that?
What is that? And who might be involved in that? What does that have to do with Nazis? And that sounds like a person and not a place or anything.
Mm-hmm.
And to that I'd say, wouldn't you like to know?
Yes. You know, we're gonna highlight a particular sicko today. There's plenty of characters to choose from, but we decided this particular guy, Paul Schäfer, was definitely a good way to illustrate our goal here today. He was the guy at the helm of Colonia Dignidad. It was a religious cult.
All the
I
above.
think it's safe to call it a cult.
Yeah,
It's a cult.
Run by this one-eyed fuck.
Yes, he had a one eye. They founded this thing in 1961. He came over from Germany. He had some complications in his past. You know, he was. You know, people weren't really vibing with him.
He may have been a Nazi.
He may have been a Nazi. He may have diddled some kids. You know,
He had a glass eye.
He had a glass eye.
That doesn't help with making friends.
It
doesn't help
creepy glass eye
when you
too.
fucking stab your eye out at 6 years old or whatever. With a
Oh,
fork.
all right. So we should start with that.
Yeah, definitely a little treat. You know, just to kind of give you a little treat for who we're gonna talk about. This guy, he brutalized himself at a very young age. He poked out his eye with a fork when he was trying to untie his shoes.
How the fuck do you do that?
Yeah, it's like
He was using the fork?
He was using the fork. Yes.
Oh, I've got my lederhosen on. Time to just get my shoes untied.
I can't even picture how that happens. Like, you bend over and just fork in the eye?
Yeah, I like.
Oh, these shoes are so hard to take off. I should use the fork.
See, fuck.
It's like me and Cam were talking about this
Thank
before.
God
Like,
this
is it like
fork
some
was here.
penetration thing they got going on?
Oh,
I don't
mine
know.
eye.
It could be an honest mistake, though. If you're holding up something sharp and you forget it's there, bro, you just
Especially
bend
when
over
you're
a little
6.
bit.
Bro.
You guys see that video of like the girl blowing out the birthday candles and she had like the knife above her head for some reason, and she like there was a guy above her like trying to like I guess grab her arm or something as she was going down, and he like went down a little bit and the tip of the knife just went straight. in the right eye.
No, I don't watch
So what I'm trying to say is
gory shit like that.
it wasn't that gory.
So
It can happen.
yeah,
It can happen.
but it sounds like he did it himself.
Yeah.
So this was a whole. It's actually impressive when you think about it, because like it's not easy to poke your own eye out. It's really not easy. Like, you have to force yourself to do that.
I almost
Your
did, like,
body
3
will try
times
and stop
last
you.
week. No, it's not true.
Your
It's so
body
easy.
will try and stop you.
No.
So this guy was either a freak
He
or an
disagrees.
idiot or both. I think he was probably just an idiot and a freak. And
But surprisingly, very good at manipulating people.
very charismatic. There was a man that said in 1952 that it was as though his charisma was radiating from him like a light. Something about these German preachers, these dudes with very weird gesticulations and inflections in their voice. It does something. It does something for the Nazis.
You think it's the German? Does it help?
I don't know. I mean, most cult leaders have this trait where they are.
That's true.
Probably you could probably consider them kind of stupid, but their riz is maximized.
There's
Yes.
a weird thing with cult leaders, like when you look at L. Ron Hubbard or guy from Jonestown, like all the above, like you see that these people, like I mean, if you look at L. Ron Hubbard for an example, like his writing is garbage. Like his novels are just word salad when you read them. Yes. But he was able to get people to do fucking anything for him. Like he had what's his name? Parsons. He had Parsons buy him like 2 boats so he could sail to Panama with his fucking wife.
Takes Riz.
With Parsons' wife.
And he was
not
ugly.
L. Ron Hubbard's wife.
And L. Ron
Wow.
Hubbard was disgusting.
Yeah, he was an ugly motherfucker.
That's the thing. You look at the pictures of these guys, most of them, and this isn't like a movie star fucking kind of Riz.
He had some weird
It's not
fucking
obvious.
mouth shit going on too. His teeth were all fucked up.
I guess you have to see them in person. You got to hear their voice. You got to be like under their spell to truly understand the kind of Riz that we're dealing with.
And you got to be, it's got to be under certain historical, I guess, context as well, which I guess is a good way to, try to give some context to Schäfer and Colonia Dignidad, because it was, in short, a torture colony, and also
slave
a
chamber.
slave chamber. And there was unfortunately, a lot of children abused there. And to really give context as to how something like this could even exist, you kind of have to go a little back, a little after World War II. You may have heard of that. It's a little thing that happened in time. It's a little conflict, nothing too crazy.
The second time that the Germans took on the world.
Yeah, honestly, another huge L. Jesus Christ, that's crazy.
Big L's.
Big L's all around.
Big L's is the name of the game over in Germany.
Yeah,
folks.
yeah, big L's all around, even till today.
It was close though. It was close.
It was close.
It was close. Let's be honest.
It was. If it wasn't for fucking Hitler trying to push through the winter. That fucking his coked up motherfucking
That's what
Nazi ass.
That's what meth will do to you.
That's what meth
You stop feeling the cold.
He was just like, yeah, no, we got to go through winter. Everyone's like, dude, we're going to die. He's like, you keep pushing.
More meth.
We're fighting on two sides. How are we gonna do this?
More meth chocolate bars.
And then if it wasn't for our good old friends, the Japanese kicking the hornet's nest,
Yeah.
let's not forget.
That's a whole other episode.
Oh, yeah, we got to go into that at some point.
Jesus.
But yeah, to give historical context is to how someone like Schäfer could exist, how something like Colonia Dignidad could exist. You got to go back in history to something, to what would give precedent to freaks like this even being anywhere near America or Latin America, for that matter, and something called Operation Paperclip. I'm not sure really if we learned about that in school. I know I didn't. Maybe
I think
wasn't
it was
paying attention.
mentioned. I think it was.
Maybe it
I never
was.
heard
It might
of
have
it.
been like a footnote on the bottom of the page.
Yeah, right. Like it wasn't anything.
Yeah, it's one of those things that's in the back of the textbook, like for the end of the year.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, all right, we got to fill the end of the year with
Oh,
something.
by the way.
Talk about fucking World War II.
Yes,
some
yes,
shit.
yeah. As you get close to modern times, you're just like, oh yeah, this happened.
Which they barely cover. Like,
Yeah.
I really don't remember learning too much about World War II in
I
school.
remember a whole unit.
I think it depends on like the fucking teacher
Yeah.
you get. I feel like, and what they decide to.
That's
focus
also
on.
true.
You
Yeah.
know, maybe
Probably was mostly in Catholic school though. So
But
you had a different education.
surprisingly with Saint yeah, I guess you could block it out. Fucking they didn't have to follow any public school curriculum. Like that's one good thing about private schools is like if the teachers are like good,
Yeah.
you're able to learn a lot more
if we get more out of that
because they create their own curriculum.
or a lot
Yeah.
less, right?
Sometimes a lot less. Like sometimes, like my Spanish teacher was horrible. Like she was an awful person, and she just didn't know how to teach anything. But like my global history teacher was fucking awesome. Like he went into everything. He showed us like he let us watch like Last Samurai. Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, Last Samurai. Hell yeah, brother.
We're just talking about
We're
that.
big fans
Yeah.
of Tom Cruise over here.
Oh
We
yeah.
love Scientology.
We love
love
Scientology.
Yes, the
fan of
original
cults.
reincarnation of L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah.
Dude, I remember being shown the videos of like the wheelbarrows like pushing the dead bodies in the Holocaust. Like they showed.
No, that was
They
Monty
definitely-
Python.
No, and where we went to high school, they definitely showed a lot of Holocaust. We had a whole fucking.
Yeah.
They had a
Elie
whole.
Wiesel came through.
We had a whole fucking play for it. We had two. I remember seeing two
You guys
plays.
did a
for it.
Holocaust play?
Not well. We didn't do it. They just had people come in, and it was like an assembly. And we watched like some
Yeah.
brutal shit twice.
I do remember that. Yeah,
They
yeah.
we really were exposed.
Yeah, they tried to really hammer that shit.
Just leave that shit open.
Gonna open my water bottle now.
Yeah, I'll fix that in
That's-
post.
Fix it in post.
That's scary.
Robbie's handheld tonight. His
Yeah.
mic stand broke, unfortunately.
It's not.
So-
yeah, I'm getting used to it.
If
right
there's
here.
some
Hold on.
effects, some stuff I can't
just
get
tap
out.
me twice and I'll be the mic holder.
No, it's okay. You got it. We're good.
But yeah, the stuff you might have learned in high school, you probably learned a lot about the Holocaust. You probably learned a little bit about World War II, but you probably learned like, oh, we tried all the Nazis and they're all gone, and that was it. We might have, maybe some of them escaped, but maybe Hitler's in Cuba or Brazil. Who knows?
Yeah, he's
But-
chilling with Tupac.
He's chilling with Tupac, that's most likely.
I remember.
I remember.
But they really don't talk about people like Werner von Braun. Don't really know who that guy is. But you might know a guy named Walt Disney. They were definitely not great people that came over through Operation Paperclip, and it really consisted of this project to bring a lot of Nazi scientists, engineers, rocket scientists.
They're
and
not
whatnot.
sending their best.
we wanted all their best. If we tried to get all their best, it didn't matter if these guys were directly implicated or not, And you can say like, oh, maybe some of these guys were just forced to work as engineers and whatnot. And maybe there were a couple that weren't too bad, but there was definitely some that weren't the greatest. You definitely didn't hear about something called the middle work. That's it's a concentration camp. It was a workers camp that was primarily to build rockets and whatnot. V2 rockets, the main instrument of death in the late war over Europe. And a lot of these were built with slave labor, people directly taken from Auschwitz, Buchenwald.
So they would take them out of concentration camps and put them in middle work to build.
Exactly.
So was there the same amount of like extermination, like mass murder in middle work?
I would say, if anything, the murder happened from the horrible working conditions, because it was just so, a lot of times they wouldn't even give them tools to dig the tunnels because they didn't want them to revolt.
Right.
So they would be digging with
Jesus
their hands.
Christ.
Jesus.
Oh, yeah, man.
So it really got sick. And one of the guys who was one of the general managers, his name was George Ricky. I don't know how to
It's a
pronounce
weird German last name.
It's German. It's a name.
Ricci.
Ricky.
I'll pronounce it however I want.
Ricky.
Fucking Nazi. Who
Fucking
cares?
Nazi.
Nazi
on
scum.
his resume itself, what was used to get himself hired as an American engineer. He used on his resume that he was a general manager of Middleworks, responsible for all production of anything V and any other technological advancements, And he was responsible for having like miles of tunnels built with slave labor, And this was a guy who with open arms, it was like, yeah, he's qualified. We need him over here, Werner von Braun, as I mentioned before. He was amongst the people at Middlework and was complicit himself.
And what year was the middle work thing?
Middlework was towards the end of the war. I want to say 1944, 1943. And I would say in general, this was something that was formed maybe like in the latter years of the war, just to make sure that none of their weapons factories could get bombed by the Allies and whatnot. So, while it was for like a strategic purpose, it also served as a means of exterminating so many people because of the working conditions itself. And once again, people like Werner von Braun were absolutely complicit in the procurement of slave labor to make, these things possible.
These weren't all Jews either at this point, right?
Exactly. They weren't all Jews. They were people, they could have been political prisoners. A lot of them were Jews.
I think they imprison Catholics and
Exactly.
stuff too. Like
Gay people.
you know,
And the
gays.
Nazi regime is around long enough at this point that people could be like standing up to it, or like at least not drinking the Kool-Aid.
Exactly. You know, you have people from Poland,
Well,
obviously.
towards the end of the war, there was a lot of that.
Fucking sick of you guys. Get out of here. Go. You're fucking annoying.
no,
Breaking
yeah.
all my glass. Come on.
So what did Werner von Braun do in the Nazi Party exactly?
Well, he was more or less like a rocket scientist as well. You know, he
Right.
received the.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's
yes,
right.
he received the. Let me see if I can get this here.
Wasn't the Nobel Prize?
Well, he might have. Maybe you could check on that, Greg, if he got the Nobel Prize. But I know he got the Knight's Cross of the War Merit, cross with swords, awarded by Hitler himself.
They liked crossing swords.
They love that. I mean, you know, he awarded by Hitler himself.
Before we continue, this guy's name, his actual name is insane. Werner Magnus Maximilian Freiherr von Braun.
Yeah, it's a Nazi name.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 parts in his name. Anyway, let me keep going. You can keep going. I'll look it up.
No, yeah. And I have a little letter here that he himself wrote to one of the people he was working with, a middlework engineer, Albin Sawatzi. I don't
Cue
know
the
if I-
German background music.
Damn, I don't. Is
That's
the snarky puppy German background music?
One of the first things that comes up when you look him up is like, did Werner von Braun apologize?
nope.
And he said, I have very deep and sincere regret for the victims of the V-2 rockets, but there were victims on both sides. A war is a war. And when my country is at war, my duty is to help win that war.
That's some half-ass bullshit right there.
You can see the language has not changed that much.
He took the old Popeye approach. I am what I am.
Yeah,
But
big
yeah.
baloka.
So the guy that just, you know, both sides that argument, he had a letter to an engineer one day that said, during my visit to the middle work, you proposed to me that we use the good technical education of detainees available to you from Buchenwald. I immediately looked into your proposal by going to Buchenwald myself with Dr. Simon to seek out more qualified detainees. So I think it's also a very good reminder that a lot of the people that were caught up in these concentration camps were normal people. You know, they were emaciated by the time they were freed, but these were engineers, these were students, these were people who were part of building the infrastructure of society. And this was pretty much just not only a means of ideological conflict, but it also a means of supplying your economy with slave labor, which is, as we go a little bit more into Colonia Dignidad, you'll also see that was pretty much how Paul Schäfer made. That was how that thing ran. People worked for free. It was under the auspices of religious piety, but it makes no difference. It was slave labor. And as we go more into the accounts of the people who were there at Colonia Dignidad and their recollections of it, you'll definitely see that, yeah, it wasn't due to religious piety.
Yeah.
Werner did not get the Nobel Prize, by the way.
He didn't.
Okay.
But he got a lot of awards from NASA.
A lot of awards.
There was a Nazi that won the Nobel Prize, right?
I'll look that up.
Most likely, yeah.
I know Hitler was like Time Magazine's Person of the Year.
Oh, yeah, they were loving that guy for a bit. You
Oh
know?
yeah.
He was bringing civilization to all those barbarians.
Little did they know he was just a methed up little psycho.
At first, they came for the Times cover, but I didn't care because I wasn't a Times cover.
Dude. That video of him at the Olympics is always fucking
Yeah.
a weird revisit.
Yeah, it's
With
just
him
like-
rocking back and forth.
Oh, dude, it's
it looks
so
like it's like
wild.
fast forward.
Tweaking the fuck out.
yeah, my man was fucked up.
He
yeah.
was fucked
Grabbing his
up.
fucking peenie.
Yeah, maybe another episode we'll talk more about the drug use.
I want to talk about
This
his
area.
doctor in another episode because, like, that one doctor that kept giving him the cocktails and shit.
Yeah, the one that the Nazis are like, dude, fucking, what's going on with that?
yeah.
Yeah, even the Nazis were like, no,
It's
man.
like, you guys sure about this?
I don't know, man. Hitler said he's cool though. We can't do anything.
can't do anything.
When I look up Germans who won Nobel Prize rather, nothing comes up. But this guy won a Nobel Peace Prize who was a German, but he was not a Nazi. In fact, he was a pacifist, and seemed to be against the whole thing. And when he won it, he was arrested and sent to the Ester vegan concentration camp near Oldenburg, and he was forbid from traveling to Norway to receive it
Wow.
in 1936. So
Oh, so that was in the shit.
Yeah, that was in the shit.
that sucks. That's a good man though. Sounds like. Anyway,
No, yeah, it's some, obviously there were people that were coerced, and I think it's definitely worth mentioning the Soviet Union's parallel to that. Can't remember the name right now, unfortunately. I do apologize, but it was a similar program, and I think they actually tried to get more scientists overall, but it wasn't something that was they didn't get integrated into our society in the same ways. In many ways, it was for coercion purposes. A lot of any Nazi scientists that were captured by the Soviet Union were actually coerced. It wasn't really more like a chummy relationship. It was more like, you're here to do this shit, and we'll probably kill you. Maybe we'll set you free, kind of thing.
Yeah, they definitely weren't as nice as we were.
They definitely weren't as nice as we were, and I think it's worth mentioning it was planned to be a larger scope. They were planning on taking way more than we were planning.
Right.
Didn't really work out that way though. But overall, mentioning Werner von Braun, George Ricky Ree, it's, you would wonder, like, in the closing days of World War II, like, these guys are discussing procurement of slaves, and the rockets that these slaves are making are like crashing over French citizens' heads, and you would be surprised, and they were surprised as well. A year later, they were being welcomed into America as part of society, and I think that definitely should give you some idea that there is precedent for these kind of freaks, these kind of slave drivers, mass murderers, to be here, and for that stuff to be sanctioned, and for it to be a norm. It's strange and mysterious in a way that something like this, that's so foreign to us and our sensibilities, could exist. And, once again, people that you would think would know better that are actually complicit in it.
Yep. Allow it to happen.
And to allow it to happen. But yeah, and also to give a little bit more context, I believe, to the idea of colonial dignidad, other than the idea of how a man himself could exist like that, how the idea of a slave colony could exist as well. You also need to discuss something called Operation Condor, which was a intelligence operation in the 70s. It was a collaboration between multiple different South American countries, mainly the Southern Cone, but South America in general. In particular, Argentina, Chile. Now, this ranged from sharing of information on political dissidents to transferring of prisoners across borders, to transferring of technology, and a lot of this was on the wake of World War II. Again, a lot of these Latin American countries, this is something we all know, I assume, we're just under the thumb and rule of colonial ruler after colonial ruler, whether it be Spanish, whether it be us, and they were coming off the heels of being colonial subjects and having their freedom for the first time. And, they're looking at us in America, the beacon of freedom, and they're just like, yeah, we want that too. They're listening to FDR talking about the four freedoms of speech and, and liberty and like, your right to have a good way of life, and they're just like, yeah, we want that shit too, we don't want to like slave away for like some power in a different country, and so a lot of these people wanted something better for themselves. But unfortunately, after World War II, as you can tell, we already were very comfortable letting the existing powers that be, like the Nazis, be, I don't know how you would say, whitewashed, or at least reintegrated back into society. So it shouldn't be a surprise that a lot of these power structures stayed present after World War II. And Operation Condor was kind of a means to keep that power structure in play. And places like Colonia Dignidad were a means of enforcing that. There are thousands of people during the years of 1970s to the 80s, the late 80s, of people being disappeared, people being murdered en masse. A lot of times, under the guise of being communist, but you didn't have to be communist. You could just been someone who just, wanted something better for yourself or joined a student group,
Yep.
We watched a documentary on,
I'm gonna make a difference.
yeah, literally, you're just some dude trying to make a difference. Like, I don't know, think about like you're in high school, you're in college, and like you get radicalized for the first time. Maybe
You're not Martin Luther King Jr. You're not.
First time.
and then like you just get kidnapped. Like just off some shit. Like you were barely.
You might be wondering how I got here.
Yeah, like you're probably not even barely politically conscious. You're just like, hey, I see injustice happening, and I want to, I'm growing up, and I want to have like an identity and put my mark in the world, and
My mock.
and you're taken, and you're taken to this fucking colony. You have electrodes strapped to every part of your fucking body,
In your body.
as we will discuss later on.
Off topic, real quick. Not to go too far, but do you hear about that guy who gets his blood from his child?
Yeah,
you know
the
that guy.
billionaire,
Yeah,
yeah.
apparently he gets shock therapy on his cock to get erections of an 18-year-old.
Wait, what?
Yeah, you just reminded me of that. But yeah, it's fucking crazy.
That's a thing?
For him, it is, I guess.
I remember hearing about that guy.
Wait,
yeah.
we need to.
Yeah, he
I didn't even
has
hear
blood
about this.
transfusions with like.
I think
his,
it works as well as getting blood transfusions
He also
from your
gave
son.
his
So
blood to his father, and apparently that made his father immediately 25 years younger.
Jesus Christ. Maybe he's
That's
on to
so
something.
hard, son. I miss your mother.
Imagine you're about to have sex with a guy and he starts shocking his dick. There it is. There it is. Oh, there it is. Yes.
400 hertz.
More power!
You see like his dick start like electrifying like he's a sand.
Anyway, back to the.
That's crazy. I don't even remember what we were talking about.
That guy would definitely be a Nazi.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
That guy.
he would definitely be a sympathizer.
You were talking
yeah.
about the Nazis being like basically accepted into all cultures even after the fact. But here's the thing:
Reintegrated.
I don't want to get in the habit of defending Nazis or
Oh, God.
people that take Nazis in. But it's really easy to say now, 80 years or so later, like, damn, those Nazis were fucked up. But like, you didn't have mass media or the internet to, and I don't think even a lot of the like layman civilian Nazis truly know or knew what was going on at those camps or like the true extent of it.
There were people that did know because they were so close to the towns that
They saw
they
the
would
ash.
they would smell it and they would see the ash and
I'm not saying that's not
Like-
true, but even with that being true, if you don't have the internet to quickly spread these things, it's really easy for things to stay in insulated pockets.
right. It's also easy to ignore too if you're not hearing about it constantly.
Right.
Like if your whole town knows it's happening but everyone doesn't talk about it, then
And
it's
this-
really easy to like not talk about
And
it.
this terror was so, and like this, the plague to humanity that they were was so bad that to even hear these things without seeing pictures or videos or firsthand accounts, like you can't really even truly fathom how horrific this shit is. Because like, I don't think people are in the habit of imagining things like that.
No one wants to.
No, yeah, I think you're right. I think really up until, Auschwitz was, people in Auschwitz were freed, up until like the Soviets freed the first camps, like people really didn't understand the extent. I mean, we understood there was some pogroms going on. We understood
We knew
that.
bad shit was happening, but there's a difference between bad shit and like historically horrific, unprecedented. Well, not I guess unprecedented, organized like this kind of.
Yeah, it's organized
Terror.
Organized terror on a state level. It was bureaucratic. It was machine-like. I know the things that we've definitely surgical is definitely a great way to put it. Especially how they decided, death marches and stuff like that. The methods of execution in the camps. It was definitely on a level that we haven't seen. Like we have seen mass death, but like you said, on such a surgical and institutional level. it was definitely unheard of.
And there was so much hatred behind it, specifically targeted at these people to make them suffer. This wasn't like a, sorry guys, we got to ethnic cleanse, no hard feelings. This was like, no, like we want you to feel this. Like we want your people to feel this for generations to come. Like,
Yeah, and I think, what you said before too, and I think there is some truth to it, but I think there's also worth mentioning that, Nazism or fascism in its current form, or in that form, especially in the 1940s, 30s and 40s, it was kind of like taking fanaticism or like esotericism and magic into like the political realm and using mass media as a way to convey that message. So, while like, obviously all the information that we have now wasn't like available, but I would say mass media was 100% a tool used to further that message. And there was kind of this idea that we were executing, or they weren't we, but they were executing Jews, and that they were used as a scapegoat, for the ideological project, for the Volk.
but Jews weren't well liked across the globe.
And that's also very true, which is funny.
Which is why they played on it and it worked.
And it worked very well,
The Jews were blamed constantly through history. Like
Yeah.
before World War II, they were blamed for because like everyone just gave the excuse like, oh, they control the banks.
Yeah,
like,
exactly. It's just like, oh, they weren't allowed to do anything really except for handle money, and of course you're going to build up financial ties and, all this wealth because you're unable to access a part of the society that, Catholicism once viewed as a sin, usury in the use of interest and creating money out of nothing, that was seen as like sacrilegious, and
Really?
Oh yeah.
So Jewish people were the only people allowed to lend on interest and create more money out of money, and as war started to happen over Europe, it was like, oh wait, we kind of need this thing to like fund ourselves because we won't be able to just fund it with finite gold. We kind of need this financial instrument. And then when that financial instrument, falls on its head, or the way you used it doesn't work, you blame the Jews.
Damn, the Jews invented interest? they're so good at stretching things out.
They didn't invent it, but it wasn't sacrilegious. It was like, yeah, you can do this,
It is kind of sacrilegious if you think about it. Like,
I agree.
yeah, you have a lot of money here. You want more money.
You want more money. But, it was really all they could do, for a long time. And, obviously, like you said, like, they become the scapegoat for a lot of issues that you may have. And it worked perfectly back in World War II because, like Cam said, everyone was fucking anti-Semitic, and people would love to say, and oh no, it was just the Nazis. And it's like, dude.
Yeah.
A lot of people are anti-Semitic today. Like, you can only imagine what that shit was like in the 30s, where motherfuckers were just like, yeah, Hitler's cool, dude.
It's exactly. It's kind of like an analog to what's happening in China with the Uyghur Muslim population. Like the world, I think, still. I mean, ever since 2001, kind of has like this fear or this like, I guess, this eye towards Islam, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah.
So if
I
like,
think it's sort of subsided like a good amount through the years.
for sure. But if there was any group that would be easily genocidable, is that a word?
100%.
Oh no, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean,
absolutely.
well,
especially
because
recent.
all you have to do is look at the Middle East and see that it's like constantly just on fire.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that's, and you can give people the ideas just like, well, look at what they do.
Yeah.
It's like that's the whole thing. Like that's why a lot of European countries don't allow like refugees from the Middle
Yes.
East in anymore. I mean, especially what happened with Syria, the Syrian refugees in I think
Exactly.
it was Belgium or something, right?
Yeah.
That was bad. But regardless, I mean, like that just fuels the fire.
It just fuels the fire that was already there, because of pre-existing conditions, But yeah, long tangent aside.
Right. We were talking about Condor, I think, right?
Yeah, that was, and pretty much, I just also wanted to mention, because Cam did mention, like these people not knowing what was going on, or not necessarily not knowing what was going on, but the information that we have now was obviously not available. but also wanted to mention that, the sentiment for Germans was, relatively high, I would say, in Latin America in general.
Pause. Robbie can't hear anything. Check your connection because Cameron can still hear and you're connected to the same thing.
It's connecting.
Reality Resin is brought to you by Nazi Be Gone. Another Loch Ness product.
We kill
If
Nazis.
you have Nazis in your South American country, you could be sure that we're gonna send in our secret, specially trained special ops squadron to put a red dot in between those Nazi fucking eyebrows.
I'm gonna kill his ass.
They're trying to steal your kids. They're trying to replace your flag. They're trying to gas you. I don't think so. Nazi Be Gone is a tried and true tested product.
All right, and we're back. Robbie's good.
We're good. Someone's foot was on the connector.
Oh.
Yeah, you.
You talking me?
I'm talking. You talking to me?
No blaming Jews on this episode, Robbie.
Ah, you got me.
Put my foot where I want.
You got me.
It's like Black History Month.
There's so much more Jew history.
Wow.
There is
Wow.
you know,
Is that true? I think the Black history goes all the way back to
The black aren't the blacks the first
Because
Jews?
if Black history goes back farther enough, it just becomes human history because we're all African.
right, but that's still black,
No.
right?
No.
So when do they become black? When other people are white?
I don't know. If you go back to Australopithecus, it was probably around then.
well, to Black Israelites, everyone's Jewish. So
True.
True.
Except for the actual Jews.
yeah, they're faking it. Yaakov did some shit.
You guys stole our Judaism. You took it after it was cool.
Turn this poop into wine.
Also on the topic of anti-Semitism and it being very cool and hip with people in South America, I wouldn't even really say it was not even to be facetious. Like, it wasn't cool and hip. It was more, there was history of industrial development. And I would say in the late 19th century, early 20th century, there was a lot of trade. Like, I would say it was about 13% of Latin America's exports were going to Germany. And about 12% of Germany's imports were going to Latin America. I could have the numbers flip-flopped.
So there was a history prior to the exodus of Nazis to South America.
Absolutely.
There was a history of anti-Semitism in South America.
Absolutely. It's a history of definitely people vibing with the Nazis, and even before it was like the Nazi party,
They just had like an industrial tie with Germany.
Right.
Absolutely. Germany sold them a lot of weapons. Once again, they were pretty big trading partners. Germany wasn't really it was a colonial power, obviously, but its aspirations weren't, I would say, as high as America or like Britain. I would say in Latin America, so to speak. Like a lot of people, there's conjecture about Nazi Germany's interest in Latin America as a colonial power, and it's kind of debated back and forth because they were too busy trying to conquer Europe, and they were more or less interested in financial, I guess, hegemony as opposed to like cultural and ideological hegemony.
Of course.
Yeah. So they were more interested in selling like guns and shit. I think there's a direct quote from the book Predatory States. I am an asshole for not remembering that author's name. Hopefully you can
Look it up.
Judy Bloom. Judy Bloom.
It's but yes,
Barack Obama.
Barack Obama.
Elstein?
What's the book called?
Predatory States.
R.L. Stein.
But yes, she mentioned in her book that one of the main goals was less ideological, more we want to have an economical like domination. So we're just trying to sell them more or less our military expertise and our guns.
Was any of this to compete with America in any way?
Yes, absolutely. Which kind of
We were already had our tendrils and stuff.
exactly. And just also to kind of like weapons dealing and gun running is
So some Nicolas Cage shit.
some Nicolas Cage shit. And this was going on in like fucking I would say late 19th century, early of 20th century.
Which means, what years? What years are those?
I would
1800s, 1900s, late 1800s to early 1900s.
yes.
The author's name is J. Patrice McSherry.
Because
Yes.
isn't the 1900s the 18th century, and then the
No.
No. The 19th century is the 1800s, and the 20th century
It's the
is
other way
the
around.
19th.
So we're in the 21st century.
We're-
Soy man.
He's a 21st century fuck.
All right, makes sense.
Just remember that, like, the first 100 years BC, no, AD, was the generation 1. So it's always like +1.
Did they know that at the time? They're like, we are the first generation.
I don't think that's how it works, but
Yeah, I don't know.
We are in the year.
I always wondered that.
95.
Of like, all right, Jesus came back.
I forget what comedian that was.
We're
but it's
resetting the
like-
clock.
You think of like a 60-year-old in 40 AD, and it's like, well, how are you 60 years old if it's only the year 40?
Yeah, right.
How are you doing
Makes
this
no
magic?
sense.
So yeah, they were all up in them guts for a while, and definitely towards the rise of the Nazi Party, because of these trade ties and because there were already German settlements, whether it be Ashkenazi Jews or whether it be actual people looking for that hint of the Bavarian countryside. They were all out there already.
Were there
and-
Jews in South America at this time?
Yeah, absolutely.
Jews are everywhere.
They're everywhere. Yeah, the diaspora it's a diaspora.
Let my people go.
That's interesting though, that just to bring up like the similarity between South America, like the places that the Nazis moved to the Bavarian
Yes.
environment over there.
yes.
It looks really similar. It's like they were just like, all right, this is second Germany.
yeah.
This is
They're just like, this is it. This is our new fucking home now, dude. Like they got all the variety. They got the forest. They got the rolling plains. They got the snow-capped mountains.
They were asking for it, you're saying, because of what they were wearing? Is that what you're
man.
implying?
That's right.
You got those Andes.
You got those fucking Andes, dude. Those fucking Twin Peaks, bro. Those shits are nice, man.
You got those
Them
pleated
Andes.
skirts or whatever they were wearing.
So this is basically why Colonia Dignidad was popping, because it was just so similar.
Hello,
and,
fellow whites.
Yeah, and the
Yes.
Chileans at the time that Colonia Dignidad started, the government was like, these guys are they're all right. We like their style. They're efficient. And they let us.
Spider-Man meme.
We also like to torture our political rivals.
Yes.
So this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
We're getting along just fine.
I see you are a man of culture as well.
You like cruel and unusual punishments.
While looking good
While looking
Wild,
fly as fuck.
and yodeling on the mountaintops.
Well, see, I gotta question the Bavarian Lederhosen. It's not as stylish. It's not drippy at all.
I think they made pretzels though.
It was
that's
pre-drip.
that's
It
a
was
weird
pre-drip.
thing. It's like Germans, they don't really have a lot going for them. Like they don't really have good, like, besides like the Hugo Boss uniforms and stuff, like the fashion was kind of like a little outdated. They don't have good comedy. Like they're rarely funny people. Germans. Like,
For our listeners that don't
they
know what
hate when people bring that up, that they're not funny. Like that's one of their like biggest things. It's like we are funny.
for our listeners that don't know what lederhosens are, they're the classic stupid clothes that you think of when you think of German people.
Green tights.
Yeah.
It's almost like sweet Swiss.
Yeah.
Swiss.
When you see your
Swiss.
friends on when you see your
Germans.
friends on Instagram when they're at like Oktoberfest or something, they're always wearing those.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. The
They are
Lederhosen.
silly costumes.
They're very silly costumes.
What about that slap dancing? You ever see them do that slap dancing?
I
Slap,
do it
slap,
better.
slap. Clap, clap, clap.
Clap, clap, clap.
That's just that fucking white culture, dude. I don't know how else to say it. That's why.
Those are the original weird whites.
Unchecked
they
whites.
are.
Unchecked
Yeah,
whites.
Germany is definitely the situation of the unchecked island of whites.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, they really thought they were the shit for a while. They were just like, oh, we got the Ubermensch, yeah.
The Ubermensch.
Sieg Heil.
But yes, as Greg was saying,
One secret word is Fritz.
Fritz. Oh,
Fritz.
Scheiße, yeah.
Oh, Siegfried. I love you, Siegfried. There's nobody better than you, Siegfried.
Well, as Sir Gurgles was saying,
Yeah, I put it in your pussy. Yeah.
That's what he said. It's a direct quote.
that's verbatim.
That's how I met Cyril's mother.
Oh my god. Oh,
So Colonia Dignidad.
so Colonia Dignidad, yes. Yeah, before we move into Colonia Dignidad, I did want to give a little treat, just to cap off the idea of Condor and the idea of a multinational state apparatus. Not so much to do with Colonia Dignidad, but just a fun fact. There was a Chilean diplomat by the name of Orlando Letelier, probably mispronouncing that. He was a advisor within the Salvador Allende government, the socialist government that came before Augusto Pinocchio. And after Pinochet came to power, Orlando, he went around, discussing and protesting against the government and criticizing the neoliberal practices of the government and the government itself. And they blew his ass up in DuPont Circle in Washington, D.C.
What do you mean by they blew his ass up?
Car bomb.
Oh,
So,
damn.
yes, they blew up his car.
Now who let's make that distinction. Who blew it up?
Let's make the distinction.
It was P. Diddy.
It was P. Diddy.
Yes, I saw the news. I don't want to get sued.
What didn't Diddy do?
Hopefully not sue us. He was innocent. It's all alleged. Alleged?
Allegedly.
Alleged.
Allegedly. We don't have the information.
Dude, they settled the day after. Did you see that? They settled yesterday.
Really?
We were
Yeah,
while we were talking about it, it was already settled
Yeah,
when we were
wow.
talking about it
Of
yesterday.
course it was.
Well, that gives you your answer.
Can't
Whoa,
stop.
all right, I'll pay you.
Won't stop.
Yeah, can't stop, won't stop.
He's just dancing in the courtroom.
They
didn't even have to go to the courtroom, I don't think.
No, I didn't even get to that point.
They didn't even get there.
I don't even think
Oh
we got
yeah,
to
they
that
settled
point.
out of court. That's yeah, it's always that.
Yeah. So that's pretty P. Diddy. It was P. Diddy. But
Car bomb.
Kid Cudi was in the car.
Kid Cudi was in the car.
God.
But yeah, it was the Chilean intelligence service, intelligence agency, DINA. The acronym name is escaping me right now. I'm gonna quickly look that up.
Dastardly, innocuous, netherly assailants. Am I right?
That's not what it stands for.
not. Oh, Dirección de Inteligencia Nacional.
Ole!
A National Intelligence Directorate. So yes, that was one of the main security apparatuses in the Southern Cone and particularly the Chilean security apparatus. And they were responsible for contracting Cuban exiles to assist with this car bombing. Another fun little group we maybe have to talk about sometime. And yeah, they blew up his car. His wife was in the car. She wasn't immediately killed, but one of her arteries were punctured and she died in the hospital.
So the Chilean, what were they called? The DINA?
The DINA.
So they were-
Nacional Inteligencia.
They were just operating in Washington
Yes, and that's
without our knowledge.
Well, we
No,
say
I mean,
we
they had
didn't
to have
know.
officers.
Right. Well,
But we
obviously
knew.
plausible
Plausible
deniability.
deniability.
But
Exactly. You know,
Interesting.
That's kind of the reason why I wanted to bring it up, because, you know, this intelligence agency was also responsible for many of the people that disappeared and many of the people that wound up in Colonia Dignidad. And, you know, they weren't isolated to just Chilean borders. This wasn't just some, you know, country with a Mexico filter on it. Like, you know, these people were operating, you know, here. They were doing this shit here. They were blowing motherfuckers up. Like, imagine if you're.
I mean, we do it all the time.
I mean, you do it all the time, exactly. But, you know, I think it's important to say, because many Americans do not have any experience with any sort of violence on that scale, unless it's like a mass shooting, which at this point many people do. But in terms of like a terrorist attack,
Especially in Washington.
especially in Washington, in the capital, in a residential neighborhood,
Yeah.
in Embassy Circle, aka DuPont Circle. So it just gives you a little bit of an idea of like the kind of people that you're dealing with.
And to put it into further historical context, you can't forget South America about 560 million years ago used to be part of the supercontinent Pangea. So you really got to remember that when you think about where this all leads.
They were all
I
linked.
agree.
They're all culturally linked. You know, the Germans were there. They were there, and the Black Israelites. They're all Jewish.
But back to the Dina.
The Germans were the first black Israelites.
The Germans were the first Black Israelites. That makes a lot of sense. So yeah, just wanted to, you know, give you a little treat, you know, for the kind of state apparatus that was lurking in the shadows of Colonia Dignidad, and yeah, I think it's a good time to get a little bit more into what the colony was, who Paul Schäfer was, talk a little bit more about that fucking eye.
Permanent uncle.
Yes.
Perma uncle.
They called him the
Nazi
permanent uncle.
scum.
He was the permanent uncle to many of these people. Many of them didn't know who their parents were or anything like that.
How'd they get over there? He got like a group of 300 folks
Yes.
from back home. And
Yes.
it was like some with a religious reason. He was
Yeah.
like, we're all gonna hop over to Chile.
Well, when so what's the time frame? When did he?
So I would say
Eventually go.
let's
Wasn't it the late 60s?
it was the early 60s when he got there. I would say, you know, once again, you know, he grew up in Germany. Forgot the name of the town, Trossendorf.
Dresden.
I wouldn't be able to
Oh,
pronounce
well.
it anyway.
Trusendorf.
But yeah, he was at the age, a very young age, I think it was 6, 7, he poked out his fucking eye with a fork, like an idiot. He tried to join the SS, but was unable to do so because he's a fucking idiot.
Because he doesn't have an eye.
And he doesn't have an eye. So he became like a medic. And
Just want to be a soldier.
yeah, he just wanted
So
to
he
be
was
an
always on the outside looking in with one eye.
Oh, he 100% was
He
always
was born in Troisdorf.
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 Yes, and
And
I would-
everyone else in that town, 2 eyes.
well,
For the most part.
And he was described as a poor and clumsy student.
He was the sparrow.
Just a kid, and you just call him a fucking idiot.
He was the sparrow from Game of
That
Thrones.
boy ain't right.
like he was so stupid. They were just like, nah, we can't even have you in the SS, bro. Like you can't even.
We
do
can't
this.
even trust you with a fork.
Like we can't even trust you with a fork, bro. Like, you know, and he was, because he wasn't able to join the SS.
Oh my God, this is just like Syndrome from The Incredibles. He was like on the outside looking in. He couldn't quite possibly like become part of the team.
Syndrome has 2 eyes.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, that's true.
Paul Schäfer also, later in life, tried to claim that he lost his eye from a war wound.
Cap,
Yeah.
He's straight cap.
straight cap.
Nice try, bud.
He's cap.
I mean, what are you gonna be like? Yeah, I actually poked it out with a fork when I was 6 years old. Funny story, right? Oh, I joined my
Yeah.
cult.
Yeah, join my cult. Dude.
Anyway,
So yeah, you know, after he failed to join the SS, he became a doctor, and I can't remember the name of the church. It was an evangelical church, you know, for charity to help people affected by the war and whatnot.
That
So
They
Christian.
started-
It was a Christian church.
Yes, absolutely. And he was forced to leave because there was some allegations that he was mistreating some of the boys.
There's
in
some
his
rumors.
care. There's
Some rumors of molestation.
rumors of molestation.
And he was in the Evangelical Free Church.
Yes, which is kind of a weird, like like innocuous name, but the more innocuous it is, the more
It's
scary.
like freedom fighters.
Yeah, it's like, what does that? Does that really mean?
Sounds like a
Moderate rebels.
pedophile's like dream. He's like, oh man, I can meet a lot of kids
so
there.
free.
There's
Yeah,
gonna
I'm
be
so-
some kids there for sure,
I'm so free.
and we're all gonna be holding hands and hugging.
I'm in the kitchen with Dinah. It's me.
So yeah, he was diddling kids from an early time, and he after that he tried to play the traditional role of the quirky German guy roaming the countryside playing a guitar in his Lederhosen.
I hate those guys.
it's
They're
just-
all around here.
They're all around. They're all around here, dude. But and he was going around, singing to people and trying to get them to like follow him and whatnot, and it sounds ridiculous. And you're just like, what the fuck? A one-eyed freak with his
Sing
Lederhosen?
along. Yeah.
Like, and this is 1945.
So they had no
6.
other entertainment.
And like this is right after the war, so you're looking at some nigga in Lederhosen and with a guitar roaming the countryside. Like it's just like a very anachronistic thing. I feel like even for that time, it's like, dude, didn't you were just there? Like, why are you doing that? But apparently, he was very charismatic. In 1952, there was a someone who was an original follower who said that it was as though a light was emanating from him when he spoke. Like his charisma was just so overwhelming that he managed to amass these group of followers. They would follow him, and this wasn't necessarily a conglomeration like a Colonia Dignidad. It was more like a loosely tied together chain of villages, but they were his followers, and I would say around the time of 1960, 61 is when he relocated back around to his original spawn point in Trezendorf, whatever the fuck. And he had like a little orphanage going on there, and a couple of the mothers accused him of molesting their children. And he was forced to flee Germany, and he bounced around a couple places, went to the Middle East. Doesn't really matter, but what really matters is that a Chilean ambassador to Germany got his ass over there. He was unaware of his previous predilections and accusations. I don't know how the fuck you'd be unaware of that, but once again, as we discussed with Operation Paperclip, it's not too crazy to think that someone like this freak would manage to get over to the South or North American continent. It was kind of some precedent on that.
So he didn't have like a congregation follow him. He went by himself.
No
At
caravan.
first,
No caravan.
At first he did. And I think it's interesting because Greg even mentioned that he had several hundred people follow him, or close to several hundred, at least over 200 people eventually from the original colony emigrate over and join him. And then over the course of 10 years, you had the remaining original 15 families emigrate over, the remaining, or whatever was left. So, that I think that's also important to bring up, and something we'll discuss a little bit later when we go into the kind of coercion and the methods of confession that Paul Schäfer used. Like, why did these people follow him, and what was their purpose in staying? And
Right.
especially because, I assume he was diddling kids even before like the two mothers accused him. That was probably the two women that decided to stand up.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, what was the why? And I would leave that for you to think on that as we go forward. But we'll definitely touch on it again.
How does one start an orphanage? Do you just like get like one kid down on his luck, and then it's like, oh, I got another
Well,
one?
it's usually a non-profit
And also it was after the
that
war.
funds it.
After
So there's a lot of orphans.
There's a lot of orphans. This is after Germany lost. The Soviet Union was taking up land. A lot of these people weren't exactly sure if they were going to be killed or not. And
Thanks to a shipping error, I now have warehouses full of orphans.
It had a lot to do with widowed women from the war and their kids.
Widowed
So-
women from the
Yes.
war. Widowed
Yes.
women from
so
the war.
They're just desperate, and they're all, a lot of them were from Prussia, and
And they had francs. Who knew? Who cares about francs? They don't have any
Francs?
currency anymore. It's
Oh, I thought you were talking about hot dogs.
Me too.
they didn't have any of the glizzies either. If they had glizzies, maybe things would have went differently for them.
They are the glizzy country. But I do also want to mention as well, before he left the orphanage, there was a tithe in place, a 10% tax on your income for the right to confess to him. And I think is, what? Yes, it was.
genius.
Yes, I have it in my notes. They paid 10% income to Schäfer to confess daily in the orphanage.
How did he get this power?
What a fucking go-getter.
Not only do you get the secrets of all the juicy gossip,
You
Yeah.
want to save money in your taxes.
but you also get some cash money for it.
Of all the juicy gossip.
Wow.
I'll be here all night, folks.
So yeah, my man was a fucking go-getter. He was a fucking creepo. He was perfect. He was perfect for us. He was perfect. And like I said before, a lot of these people came over, and initially in 1961 is when he first arrived in Chile. Santiago.
Dude, imagine that difference. You're just like, you're in Germany. Everything's fucked. You're not having a good time. It's cold in January 1961. And then you go to Chile with your boys to set up the future, to set up your fucking pedophile sex camp.
A little vacation housing.
Pedophile sex camp.
He must have been so excited.
Seriously, dude. Like, and I think there's an excerpt from an article in the American Scholar by something Falconer, Bruce Falconer. And he mentions, he's pictured with a smile on his face as he gets off the plane in Santiago. It's like this motherfucker's just like, I'm here now, dude. Just imagine this one-eyed freak and his
This is
fucking missing. I don't know if he had missing teeth, but he probably did. He was a nasty Nazi.
Most likely.
No one knows I lost an eye with a fork here.
Yeah,
no one knows I'm weird and clumsy.
Yes,
No one knows I touch kids. This is just amazing.
this is amazing.
It's a brand new start.
It's just like
I have,
Bavaria.
how many acres? He had like 4,400 acres of land.
There's so many children here.
Oh, we can fill it up. Well, not yet, but there will be kids. They'll get here.
Yes.
When they hear how cool this place is,
Yes.
they're gonna come right over.
Yeah, holy shit. Yeah, you're right. There was at first, at its height, I guess now, or maybe in 1979, or maybe by the time he left in 1997.
Is that what that Smashing Pumpkins song is about?
What?
1979.
Oh, it might be. It might be.
I hope it is.
Kids. Totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah. Fucking goddamn Karen.
We were talking about Pangea.
So yeah, they came over in 1962, but by 1979 and after, they had at least 70 square miles of land. But when they first got there, it was around 4,400 acres of land, like a little ranch, so to speak. But over time, yeah, they developed that shit into a colony with like chicken coops, factories, gravel mills that were used for cement projects in Chile itself.
It was like a Disney World of pedophilia.
It really was.
So Disney World.
So Disney World,
So,
yeah.
so Disney World, yeah. And I also think,
Fuck.
So just regular old.
like I said before, there's so many of these motherfuckers. At least 250 were the first wave, in 1963.
See him coming over the hill.
Yeah, and which is insane to even think about. You're just like, wait, the diddler? They followed him? Yeah, they followed his ass to Chile. They had not much else in Germany. And I would say over the course of the history of the colony, just a fun fact before we move forward, there was only 60 children born in the entirety of its existence.
Right, because he wouldn't let people have children with each other.
Yes, he wouldn't let people have children. If he did, sometimes, most of the time, he would hook you up with someone who was way older than you, who was unable to bear children. And if they ever did manage to bear children, he would still take that child away from you.
Yeah, none of the kids knew who their parents were. They in that documentary that we watched, all the kids would call all the adults aunt and uncle. They never knew who their parents were, and they would refer to Paul Schäfer as, what was it?
Permanent uncle.
Permanent uncle?
Yeah.
Yeah. You couldn't think of a better fucking nickname.
In German,
I'm
it probably
sure-
sounds a lot cooler.
Yeah, it sounds different in German.
Uncle.
Look up permanent uncle in German so we can get an idea of what they were calling this guy.
The Unkmeister.
The Unkelmeister.
Unkelmeister. That's I mean, that's probably what it is.
Yeah, so this guy, and so you'd wonder,
Standiger Onkel.
Standiger Uncle.
Uncle.
I don't know if I'm saying that right. But wait,
Do the let
all right, so it's in English.
Ständiger Onkel.
Ständiger Uncle.
Ständiger Onkel.
Ständig.
Can people hear that in the record?
I'll
Oh,
make
yeah.
it so they do.
Standing that gun like.
Oh my god. So yeah, permanent uncle. He was
Ständiger Onkel.
Yes. He's
Absolutely.
Is that the name of the episode?
Ständiger Uncle.
yes, the permanent uncle and
Shit.
his flock, his colony. So
You
yeah,
gotta add that in now because
Yes.
we're all just laughing at nothing.
Yeah, I got it.
absolutely. Yeah, every time I say permanent uncle for that section, just uncle.
Ständiger Onkel.
Oh man, that's a freaky ass name in its own right. But yeah, you would wonder like, okay, we did mention he diddled kids, but I think I haven't really mentioned that he was a prolific pedophile. I would say, he was.
It wasn't his first rodeo.
It wasn't his first rodeo, and it was systematic abuse of children. He had something called sprinters. Maybe you've seen any old mafia movie, you remember like, you know, the moms would use like these young kids to carry messages and shit like that. That's kind of what he did, use them for spying, and then he would also
like Varys, kind of.
yes, but then he would molest them as well.
Like Varys.
Not
Like,
to mention these kids are working around the clock.
and they're working around.
That's the
clock.
reason why they had all this nice shit and a nice run in place.
Monday to Monday.
Not only them, but everyone worked Monday to Monday. There was one day off a year.
Yes, yes,
that's
that's also very good to mention that this was practically slave labor or debt peonage, however you want to look at it. Like Greg said, they worked at least 12 hours a day. They had really no possessions. They had
Oh, there was like a slave factory.
it really was, you
It's
know,
the perfect cult.
it's a
Yeah.
perfect cult, you know, and
It was like a Disneyland concentration camp.
yeah, in many ways, you know, and like Greg
Small
said,
world.
they had a lot of nice shit there. They had a very well stocked hospital that was state funded, and once again, it was really well run. You know, they had pretty decent communications equipment that they can use to collaborate with other forces in South America, particularly in Santiago.
They had a fully functioning hospital.
Fully functioning hospital. They had gun factories. They made their own weapons.
Oh, that was the undisclosed amount of rocket launches.
yes. There was. We'll talk a little bit more about it later. But in I think 2005, they found, or maybe no, it wasn't 2005. I think it was after he left in 1996, and they raided his colony. They found a lot of weapons, and one of the notes was undisclosed amount of rocket launchers, which
There's
is
booby traps all around, right? Like Home Alone style.
yeah
Viet Cong.
yeah
kinda.
he was on some shit. He had another sneak peek. He had a couple walking canes that had the capability of shooting bullets. He had one bullet. He had a walking, like the shit that my grandma had, like when she used to walk around the house,
walker,
like the
yeah.
walker. Yeah, he had that shit. Had the capability of electrocuting people. On some weird fucking like CIA, like James Bond, like weird ass spy technology shit.
Sounds a lot like the Chilean government hooked him up
Yeah, it sounds a lot like.
I mean, they basically
with
did. didn't
rocket
they?
launchers and whatnot.
Yes, and also like they had gun factories, and I think in the American Scholar article they specify that some of these things were made there, but then they also had a lot of World War II equipment as well, and where did that come from? But yeah, these guys had a completely well-stocked colony. Not only were they relying on the 12-hour a day practical slave labor, but like Greg said, they were sanctioned and in many ways propagated by the Chilean government itself. These things, Paul Schäfer and his prolific pedophilia was only one aspect of it, and it was more or less a useful tool for the government for their own material gains. Because during that time in Chile, as we did discuss a little before with Operation Condor, this was a time in South America where people were looking for something different. And a lot of times that what they wanted wasn't really kosher with what the powers that be thought was, at least the right way to go about making a society in the New World after World War II. And a lot of times these people were disappeared. Like we also mentioned, they were just straight out murdered. And one of the places where these people were disappeared to was Colonia Dignidad. So, while it wasn't created as a political oppression tool, it was 100% sanctioned, and everything else that went on in it. It was the pedophilia and the slave labor was more or less a background, a backdrop to what at the end of the day allowed it to exist, was the fact that, Schäfer and Augusto Pinocchio were, they were relatively tight, and it was
But make no mistake, they were relatively tight because they didn't want outside parties to see the pedophilia that was happening. For them, it was all built around like having an enclosed, efficient system that no outside party had to intervene in, so that they could have just unchecked access to all of these kids.
Well, it also like really goes into basically building a slave too. Like the whole like system that he had, like you said, it was systematic, like pedophilia. Like he would do the same thing to these kids over and over again. And that basically goes into like breaking them down, building them up and stuff, because they said that he would help them too.
yes.
Like, and that's a big thing that you would see in surprisingly enough, like some of our CIA programs, MK Ultra and stuff like that.
Yes.
Brainwashing. It's
Yeah.
grooming taken to its extreme form.
Specifically Project Bluebird too. It's like actual, like that's really how they did it, was they would break these kids down and they would build them back up. They would help them like heal their wounds and stuff, and then they would fucking break them back down again and torture them, and it's crazy stuff, man.
No, yeah, it definitely it probably destroys your sense of self and your idea of trust in other people.
And then you have one person to look up to who is
Permanent uncle.
permanent uncle.
Yeah, you got your Stockholm syndrome.
Ständiger Onkel.
and like you said before, Cam, the idea of unchecked access, because I also think we'd be remiss to not mention, like I did say that there was only 60 kids born in this time, so you'd wonder where the fuck did these kids come from. And a lot of times they would come from the impoverished Chilean indigenous people around the countryside, that were being disenfranchised themselves by the government. And once again, where are you going to get all these kids from? If you're not letting anybody
How
have
do
children.
I reach these kids?
How do I reach them? And a lot of times it would be unfortunate Chilean indigenous people who were at the mercy of those people, and the unchecked access, because it was so isolated, it also is kind of, to go back to the middle works, as we discussed before, the idea of having slave laborers was that, well, none of these people have any information or intelligence access. Like, they're totally isolated, so we don't have to worry about these people getting any information out.
And he's separating the kids from their parents, so they don't know who the parents are. So there's no parents to really truly intervene. And if they did in any way even spend too much time with these kids that were theirs, they would get punished for that. So there was no way, shape, or form for these kids to get any help.
Yeah, and I mean, you're automatically, like, from the time of adolescence, like, from the start of adolescence, you're looking for
Your permanent uncle.
a person to look up to and, like, raise you and, like,
Ständiger
teach you
Onkel.
things.
But yeah, it's so there's a lot of, I would say there's definitely, a psychology behind the idea of having that unfettered access to slaves or children, and then the fact that there's no information that's getting out of there anyway because it's so fucking secluded. So like you said, yeah, we can keep it this way because it benefits us in our material gain. And I think it's also worth mentioning that once again, these horrible acts, that I'd say for most people are unconceivable. They were done strictly for material purposes, like just an idea of, who has control over what, like where the economy is going, where the distribution of resources is going. And, that in many ways decided who got disappeared, who got tortured, who was subjugated to this guy, and I think you guys watched the German documentary, which is very funny to think, like, even the German media at some point had to be like, all right, guys, we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
Let's get ahead of the story here.
Yeah, like even they were just like, I think they even mentioned, it's a little tangent, that it took them at least to like 2016 to even recognize that like there were wrongdoings and shit like that. But I would say, we just had an animal in the house.
I'll take all that out in post. Don't worry. Try not to react to it.
I'm handheld, folks.
Yeah, it's all right.
I move around a lot.
They probably won't hear any of it. So
Yeah,
it's okay.
well.
Yeah.
Robbie's moving a lot and he's handheld.
Yeah. But I also wanted to, before we move a little move forward, I also wanted to talk a little bit more about the idea of not letting children being born. I did write a little bit about it in the notes. The idea of, was he thinking of maybe if I let these women have children, like in the orphanage, they feel protective of their kids. Are they going to be unwilling to
That's a good
follow me?
point.
Because if these women have way more of a connection with their children, like they're not going to let me just take them and molest them. Like they're going to fucking kill me.
That primal urge to protect your children would take over any day.
Any day.
Like
yeah.
that's another thing. Like, it's so weird that a guy who, like, really isn't that smart. He's not an intelligent individual at all. He's fucking crazy, and yet he has the charisma and intelligence to manipulate people, and like the knowledge to how to build a mind slave and how to like keep people subjugated and shit like that. Like, dude, it's
Like,
so nuts.
what class did he take?
There was a guy,
Why does
William.
this knowledge exist?
There was a guy, William Branham. I don't know if I'm saying it right. William Branham. I don't know, but he studied kind of under this guy, and so
okay.
he just learned a lot of his teachings, and it was just a lot of like anti-communism and a lot of nuclear bombs are gonna kill us all kind of talk. Like, let's go to South America and we'll be safe from all of that.
So Schäfer studied under this guy?
Yeah, and
Yes.
this
So-
is a guy that also echoed out through time to the Jonestown guy. What the fuck's his name? I forget, but
This guy taught
Jim Jones, thank
basically
you.
how to run a cult. And how
in a
to-
way, yeah, he was just he had ideas.
Yeah, William Marion Branham.
Branham?
Branham? It's a name. You can pronounce it. But yeah, you're right. I did forget to mention him in the beginning. Yeah, he had a pretty significant influence on him, and outside of like if you want to have a little bit more of a wider scope of Colonia Dignidad, it is in many ways a doomsday cult or sex cult / doomsday cult, and it has a lot of similarities to Jonestown, to a lot of these once again doomsday cults that surround themselves around a cult of personality, have weird ass sex practices like I'm the only one that could fuck your wife, you can't fuck your wife kind of thing.
I fuck your wife.
Yeah, not you, not you. Yeah, aside from all the other crazy German twists to it, there's these things have precedent. And this guy definitely just kind of just looked over and was like, oh, I fuck with that. Maybe I could put my own twist to it. My weird ass, one eye looking head ass. That dude was fucking ugly. But
they believed in this thing that if you have illness or anything, it comes from sinning. So it's pretty powerful stuff. And after Schäfer heard this, he felt healed himself, and that's what really got him addicted. So I'm sure that echoed through other people too. It's like, oh wow, that makes so much sense. Then you kind of just feel better about, oh, I'm not sick anymore. I must be free of sins.
I gotta do more.
Yeah, and that's a good segue into I honestly his main method of coercing people and I guess in a way brainwashing them was the idea of mutual betrayal, and the idea of confession, daily confession, and the idea that if conversation is happening with two people, it's under the devil. If it's happening with three people, it's under Jesus. That third person being him.
It's to ensure blackmail.
Yeah, yeah.
That's true.
It's like compromat.
Yeah, and once again, yeah, he would, like you said, it was like blackmail in a way, but at the same time controlled.
Yeah, because they're not going to talk about anything they really want to talk about if you're listening to every word. It's the ultimate form of surveillance.
Exactly.
Oh yeah.
The idea of the panopticon, and obviously you confess to him, that was, like we said before, he charged 10% of your income to confess that was before Colonia Dignidad. Now he's in the colony, he's just making money off you regardless. So you don't need to get him 10% because he's getting 100%. But yeah, that was, I would say, like Greg was saying, the idea of confession being this kind of alleviating force. He definitely utilized that to his benefit in the colony. And, I think it would be, remiss to not mention, why people were even there to begin with, if they were being fucking coerced into like confessing their worst fucking fears and like snitching on their neighbors and whatnot. Like, why were they there? And there was, a little part in the American Scholar article by Bruce Falconer, where he spoke to a man, Niels Biederman. And he mentioned specifically, this was kind of, not only did it have to do with the idea of being stranded and being hopeless after the war and not having anything and looking to religion, as a means of escape, but also for the idea that you are doing this for piety. I think we also mentioned that a lot of these people were working, thinking they were doing this to be holy, to be one with God, and I think it's pretty ironic because in that German documentary where some of the people that still lived there, they were just like, yeah, we were never handed working papers. Like we didn't know this was what it was. So I feel like a lot of those people, in essence, I would say, they were there because they were willing to be there, but also due to many historical reasons and also whether it be culture. Some of them might have actually been, I mean, there were a lot of Nazis there too. I think we'll probably discuss that a little later. There's quite a few of those motherfuckers.
They really made it home.
They really made it home. There's one guy that went there a lot, the Nazi James Bond, Otto Skorzeny. He famously helped he famously parachuted in and rescued Mussolini from Italy. No joke. He's like the Nazi fucking snake or something.
He didn't do a very good job, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, well, he was. Let's put it this way: he helped Israel as an ardent Nazi. He was hired by Israel to also like help them in other like intelligence operations, and I think he also helped hunt down Nazis too. I could be wrong. I could be wrong about that. Don't quote me on that.
He worked for the money.
But he was a go-getter. He formed the first PMC group. So once again, he is literally just like fucking the Nazi version of
Haas
Kojima's Snake.
Delgado.
He's
Haas
Delgado.
Delgado.
It's fucking wild. But those, people like that, visited. And like I said, it's not like, all of them were Nazis. A lot of these people were born into it and just were fucking there. But there was definitely a lot of the people in the upper echelons that a lot of their descendants are alive today and hold the majority of the wealth in that colony to this day, which is an even crazy thing to think about. We'll discuss that a little bit more later. But yeah, it's definitely the idea of keeping people separated from families and keeping the family unit, I guess, shattered in a way that where you're the permanent uncle for everybody. It builds a psychology of, you needing to be there, not knowing anything else. And, but yeah, there's really no real answer as to why they would stay there unless you experienced it yourself. But once again, we'll talk a little bit more about the experiences of the people who were there. And it wasn't really necessarily that they wanted to be there. It was just they were born into it and there's no other option.
Also, a thing about like religious people, like diehard believers, that they're easier to manipulate in situations like that, where it's just like a normal person, you would be like, you'd have to give an actual reason, but for these people, it's like, oh well, God told me. And if you have enough charisma, you can convince people that you talk to God.
It's good enough.
Like,
Good enough.
yeah, good enough.
That's all I need.
No, yeah, and this is during a time where arguably, the Nietzschean idea of God being dead was on full display for many people. Liberal democracy had failed for many people. For many, after the blood orgy that was World War II, people thought God had left them, and you desperately search for answers and some sort of spiritual connection to have some tangible connection to the ground you're on, to give you something to keep going in life. In many ways that, if you're in the right place at the wrong time, or the wrong time in the right place, like in the wrong frame of mind, you could be caught up in some shit that, under different circumstances, you would have chosen otherwise. You would have chosen more wisely, so to speak. But I would say, overall, just to, I guess, get a little bit into the actual, we'll talk a little bit more, I guess. I don't know, how long is this going?
How long has this been?
How long has this been?
I think a little over an hour and a half or so.
Okay. We'll probably spend a little bit more time, talk a little bit about one account from the colony, and then we'll round it off a little bit, and then we'll save, I guess, the finale of Colonia Dignidad and its historical implications in the future. But I definitely wanted to talk about the guy Louis Peebles. Yeah, he was one of the guys that had escaped, and he had given an account later on in life, and he had detailed his experience, being tortured there. And I think I had mentioned before, that a lot of times when they were tortured, specifically through electroshock therapy, these things were connected to every part of their body in orifice. Not to be gratuitous, but just to give you an idea, like they would stick the shit in the guy's ass. They would put it in his dick, and they would put it in any other sensitive part on the body that can inflict pain. And they would do this to kids, and this guy, Louis Peebles, he recalls being in the colony and having this done to him, being beaten and being electrocuted, being tortured. He recalls being, blindfolded and, having wet cotton stuffed in his ears when he was transported so he wouldn't know where he was. And all of this stuff, that's just like a brief overview of his experience there. But that is, I would say, standard experience for many of the people that were there. And this guy got out. Many people did not. And I think we'll talk a little bit more about that next time when we talk about the families that to this day are suffering from this.
Part 2.
Yeah, in part 2.
Sequel.
Not only the families of Colonia Dignidad, but I think we'll also talk a little bit more about Chile itself and how that is still reeling from this mass disappearance and murder of so many of its civilian population. And
Paul Schäfer only died in 2010.
2010, yes.
And he died in Chile.
Wild.
In Santiago.
But they I mean, not to jump the gun, but they ended up turning on him, didn't they?
He escaped.
And the government changed too, so it was a little bit of pressure.
Right.
Yes. After Augusto Pinochet had went to jail and everything, people that were already interested in going in there, they eventually, repeatedly raided. A little spoiler alert: they raided his ass a couple times. They couldn't find him. They weren't really sure where he went. They weren't really sure where he went, and then he found him in Buenos Aires. But
We'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get a little more into
We'll
that.
save that juicy stuff.
But yeah, I would say, overall though, just to kind of like cap it off, a little bit of Colonia Dignidad.
Wrap it up.
Yeah. To talk as we did mention the torture techniques, and I didn't mention gelding, but there was definitely a fixation amongst Nazis to mutilate genitals.
Yeah, they really like fucking dicks up.
And they a lot of times would use dogs, Dobermans, and the like, and you can only imagine like how fucking terrifying that is. These poor animals too. And a lot of these techniques, they were, it wasn't in a vacuum. None of this is in a vacuum, as we've, illustrated, but specifically these torture techniques, the strange and unusual ways they would torture people, they originate in many ways in Nazi Germany, in the concentration camps. And once again, Paul Schäfer was not an SS guy, but, as we'll talk a little bit more next time, there was plenty of SS guys there. And this guy, Paul Peebles, recalls hearing someone speaking Spanish, but he thought it was Brazilian or Portuguese. But then he realized it was a guy with a German accent. And he was just like, what the fuck? Like, he was instructing them on the points to torture. Like, he was like, no, push harder there or do that. Like, So these are people these are techniques that were created for a specific purpose. They were, refined in places like Colonia Dignidad, and even before that in Phoenix program. A little tangent on that, like there was in Vietnam War, there was also a mass destruction of civilian infrastructure and life, and many of the techniques we use to torture Viet Cong were absolutely used in Colonia Dignidad, and also we'll talk a little bit more next time's Abu Ghraib in Iraq. And if anything, they were perfected in Iraq. The things we did to people there are very similar and along the lines. Obviously, it's minus the labor colony, but the psychological torture, is right in your face. And
It's like the Guantanamo Bay type shit, right?
Exactly. You know, and I think we'll illustrate further as to how, you know, this stuff existed. It was known of. It was a preferred method of control, and it was further utilized and deployed later on in life or later on in history, and even in recent history where you were alive. You know, this is not something that's like, oh, you were different back then. You know, it's still happening. It happened 20 years ago, and you'd be a fool if you think it stopped. But I think, you know, before we, I guess, like cap it off completely, I did want to discuss a couple interesting things. I think would be kind of. I did mention Otto Skorzeny, but I did want to mention Klaus Barbie. Klaus Barbie. That's a spoiler. I want to mention him next time. Him killing Santa Claus.
Oh, dude.
Who killing Santa Claus?
Paul
Schäfer.
Schäfer. Paul Schäfer is in the American Scholar article with Bruce Falconer. Should definitely check that out. We've been referencing that and quoting from that. Predatory States by Patrice. I forgot her name.
J. Patrice something.
Yes, and Operation Paperclip by fucking. I can't believe I forgot that author's name.
The guy.
It's another lady. So look, we got two ladies.
Annie Jacobson.
Annie Jacobson, Operation Paperclip, Annie Jacobson, and then Predatory States, and then the article by Bruce Falconer. These are pretty much what we've been using this episode. Recommend checking those out. But he discussed in the article that he had rounded up a bunch of kids, and he got some guy to dress up as Santa Claus, and then he shot that guy. And it was staged. Like, the guy wasn't killed, but he made it like, yo, like, you don't even have Santa Claus. Like, it's just me out here. Like, I'm your Santa Claus.
Permanent Santa.
Santa Claus is the devil.
I'm the permanent
I invented
uncle.
Christmas.
Ständiger Onkel.
But yeah, and then I think it was something else. Oh yeah, you know, I guess another little fun fact. During, you know, the following weeks and months of the Augusto Pinochet regime coming into power, they had like we did say, they rounded up a lot of people and disappeared a lot of people. But there was you might even know this from some movies. You might even not even realize you recognized it, but the scene of a bunch of people in a stadium being held hostage, you might remember it from like the fucking Dark Knight movie. They probably got it from that. But yeah, they had a lot of people in there, and they staged public executions. One of the more glamorized one was the execution of Victor O'Hara. He was pretty much like the Chilean Bob Dylan. Yeah, I mean, in many ways, he was seen as like, you know, a folk singer who stood up for, you know, disenfranchised people. Maybe even put in a little bit of his track, one of his tracks, if you can. But yeah, they broke his fingers on stage, and then they executed him, you know, for show.
Jesus.
And I think, once again, this is the type of government that existed in the state of Chile. So it shouldn't surprise you that something like Colonia Dignidad would exist on the farthest reaches of said state.
So corrupt.
Yeah, in many ways, you know, and once again with Operation Condor, I didn't really state it, but you know, it should be clear that, you know, none of these things really happen, especially in the backyard of America, without America's consent. Once again, Orlando Letelier got his ass blew up in DuPont Circle. If you think someone didn't know about that shit in the government and didn't in some way say like, yeah, it's fine, like, you're crazy.
Yeah, bomb going off in the capital of the United States.
In a residential neighborhood,
Someone's going to hear about it.
Someone's
Someone's going to
gonna-
know about it.
Someone's gonna know about
Someone's going to let it happen. 'cause
No
it benefits
permits?
them.
Come on.
it. So
God
yeah,
damn. Well, is that a wrap on part one? Is that?
It's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to take in.
do I got anything else to say, y'all fools?
It's hard to handle.
Hard to handle. It's too much for TV.
No, yeah, this is definitely
Too hot. For
definitely why I wanted to
Too
cover
hot
it,
for TV.
because not many people cover it.
Paper.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely didn't hear anything about this before we started researching it, and glad I did, because I just always thought Chile was a cool place
Facts.
where nothing really happens.
It was mad Chile. I thought it was Chile, dude.
Yeah,
we
but
were
it's
so
chill as fuck.
wrong.
But no.
Nope, we got Nazis in Chile.
Oh man, brutal.
Yeah, I'd say that's all I got without getting too crazy into the next one. The next one's gonna be we're talking Nazi esotericism. We're gonna be talking Klaus Barbie.
Yeah.
We're gonna be capping off Colonia Dignidad, and we're gonna be discussing the historical implications in Abu Ghraib. But we're also gonna just talk a little bit about the freaks, the characters that wound up in Colonia Dignidad. Because I think we definitely didn't discuss the personalities as much as we could have. You had to kind of lay out the groundwork, but
Yeah, we had to give a little history, a little background.
a little background. But we'll have some freaks for you. Butcher of Lyon, look him up. He was a drug runner.
Oh, I'm interested in that guy. I wanted to
Yes.
read more about him.
He,
Fun. It's gonna be a good time.
It's gonna be a good time. Black Prince, look him up too.
That's
Prince
you,
was
Damien.
black.
Damien, you're a
Sitting
Black
right in
Prince.
front of me.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So yes, it's gonna be a fun time. It's gonna be a little bit more heady next time, not so much historical stuff, but you're still gonna learn something. You're still
Man.
gonna learn something.
Man, what a dark episode. What
Oh,
a
yeah.
what a rough time. I
We
feel
took
like
a real turn.
I feel like I need to hear someone sing a song.
Yeah.
Oh man, what
It's
are
like
you
a-
talking about, bro?
Cameron, how those pipes feeling? Are they lathered
I
in
got something.
Taco Bell nacho
I got
cheese?
something different planned for today.
Oh man, that's kind of scary.
I'm gonna need a G major.
A G major.
G major, I love that key.
I need a G major.
Major G.
Major G. I'm a top G.
Top G.
The top G.
Whoa! Standing in line to see the show tonight, and there's a light on. Heavy glow. By the way, I tried to say I'd be there.
Is it copyright?
Waiting for.
I don't know, is it? Flea, just we're chill, bro. I want to take this time to share with you all a Jewish prayer. It's a Jewish prayer for the final moments of your life.
Shabbat Shalom. That was for all my Jewish brothers and sisters out there, all across the world, due to the diaspora. Up, down, top, low, high, uptown, downtown, all the 5 boroughs, Brooklyn, Chi-Town, Long Island, Missouri, Washington State, Washington, D.C., Israel, Palestine. Oh, it's a hot topic!
didn't mean to go there. Either way, even if you're not Jewish, this one's also for you, because you also face your final moments. We all go away in the end. Oh, goodbye. That was my final prayer.
Lordy Lord.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
That's pretty good.
I had to do it for the Jews.
Yeah. Well, all right.
It's come to a screeching halt.
What an episode. Damien, I'm so glad you're
Damien's
back from the
gone.
bathroom. No, he's back. He's here. Oh, wow.
It's all come to a screeching halt. What happened? My Jewish prayer really threw everyone off.
We just don't like kids getting killed. That's all.
That's what it's really.
That's
all
really it. Yeah. So we'll see you guys next time for part 2. Yeah.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
So long.